Hello, evening everybody. I think we're just about ready to make a start. I do apologise, we're a bit delayed. And that's why I'm not going to speak for very long at all. I'll be handing over to colleagues here. When we set the literature out, and historically it's always been the same, this has been an information evening for parents and not for pupils. So I'm going to ask some of our current Year 7 pupils if they wouldn't mind going through to the senior dining room. We've got some senior pupils in there who are going to look after you so that we can talk to your parents and carers. So if you wouldn't mind doing the walk of shame. Booing is not permitted. Be well careful. Little one's going to stay. Great, thanks. I think when you hear some of the input that you're going to receive this evening, you'll understand why that it's kind of tailored for an adult audience rather than for the children. Once again then, to welcome everybody. I'm looking around and I'm seeing some faces that I saw only a couple of weeks ago at the massive welcome as well. So it's great that we've got a second chance now to gather you in school. Obviously we're in COVID times and that's why we're all freezing cold, because we've got the ventilation both sides. If anybody is uncomfortable about the proximity, then please, there are additional chairs up there if you want to spread out a little bit. Just want to say, from my perspective as head teacher, I'm overjoyed at the way that Year 7s have settled into their time at All Hallows. They've thrown themselves into everything. I think that the COVID-affected years that they've had are actually now paying dividends for us, because they're dying to try things out again. They've thrown themselves into the learning, the extracurricular clubs. We can't open the doors wide enough. There's that many of them coming through to join in. So long that may that continue, because they've really hit the ground running in a positive way. One thing I do want to say to you though is, if this transition period continues positively, it's going to be through communication. We pride ourselves on being able to communicate and triangulate with you. So that partnership between home and school is really important to us. Please never hesitate to reach for the email, reach for the phone. We will be at the end of that and we'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can, because it's only by working closely together that we're going to make sure that that journey is as positive as we want it to be through the 5 years. So thank you for attending, and I'm going to hand over now, I think, to Mr. Finch. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm just going to speak to you a little bit from over here, so I'm going to use the laptop to show you. I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes just about synergy, and it's the main way that we'll communicate for all behaviour, rewards. It's got lots of fun about attendance, so I just want to show everyone how to access it. Thank you to those people who signed up. I think just have a quick look before we came in. I think we've got it down in Year 7, so there's 9 that are not signed up just yet. I emailed everybody yesterday who hadn't signed up, so if you haven't, if you just check your email, you will have got a reminder with your code to sign up to Synergy. If you have signed up, that might also mean that you've signed up but you've not yet been on to have a look at how it works. Currently, just as an update, Synergy haven't got an app that you can use, but it is in development. And I was speaking to the lady today, they're hoping that by spring of next year, they'll have an app, which I know will make it a lot easier, because it's much better to be able to just get on your mobile and press the app rather than have to actually log on to the website. But currently, that's what we do, want parents to do if possible. The easiest way for you is if you just go to our school website, and you can save that as a favourite on your home screen, which makes it a little bit quicker, and then click the Synergy tab. Now, I'm going to sign in. One of our teachers, Mrs. Washington, has kindly allowed me to sign in as her today, so that you can see from a parent point of view that she's got a daughter at the school. So I'll just Try again. Still moving on. Double S. Very nice. So from a parent's perspective, once you log in and you've registered, this is the first screen that you'll see. Hopefully you can all make that out. But what we've got on here, that's set as your homepage, and it just gives you a brief overview of your child at the school. So you can see here straight away, it's got the behaviour information down in this corner. So it's got the rewards and sanctions, any detentions that have been issued, and that's probably one of the main things that we would want parents to be looking at to start with, because that is the main way that you're going to find out how your son or daughter is getting on in school in terms of, I suppose, the conduct and behaviour in and around school. We've got a little calendar update in the top right hand side here, and then some information on attendance here. Just on the attendance, if you do go on and have a look at that, don't panic if it's not showing exactly as you thought for the day, because it runs 24 hours behind. So you'll be looking at it from the day before. Okay, so the attendance isn't actually the actual day that you're looking at, because that updates at the end of each day. From here, just a couple of things that are worth having a look at. If you click the three lines at the top, you can get into any of the different menus that you want. First thing, some people might have older siblings here. If you do, if you just click the top one there, it would then bring up a picture or the name of any siblings, and you'll be able to have a look at whichever people it is that you wanted to. In terms of all the menus down here, I'll start with behaviour, because this is one of the most important things for us. Now, on the list here that I've got set up, it starts off with this little overview for you, so you can then quickly see the green is positive, and the red or pink are any negative sanctions that they've picked up. Now, most of these are green, but I asked Mrs. Washington because Lily didn't have any on, so I just said I'll put a few on for us for the time being. So she's agreed to it tonight, and then I'll wipe them off. So just so you can see how that looks, that's your overview there. There's basically this area is the easiest one to just have a quick glance at. And then if there's anything on there that you wanted to know a bit more detail about, if you just click behaviours, it then will tell you the exact reasons why those sanctions have been given. So you can see both of these here, and these are the ones that I was messing about with today. So you can see the teacher who's issued it, the date. This one I just put on as gives you a brief description, so failure to follow instructions. Sometimes the teacher will put a comment on just to give it a bit more context, and I just put in obviously an example there, so that it's all been even as it should be given a verbal one. The second one I didn't put a comment on because that one is quite self-explanatory. So if they have missing homework or incomplete homework, it kind of tells you in the these are like a preset menu for staff. So if it explains it enough, you might not always get a comment in there. But if the teacher does feel that it needs a little bit more context, they might add something in for you as well. So the pinks are the sanctions, and then underneath we've got the positives or the rewards that teachers pop on as well. So you can see there's a mixture of different ones there from different subjects. So straight away we've got PE, English, Spanish, and obviously depending on how your son or daughter's doing, it might depend on the number of sanctions and rewards that you've got in there. So the behaviour one, very important, and again just your summary and then more detail by clicking the behaviour tab. Attendance, just so that you can have a look and check that things are as you expect. So we can see that this is the time that Lily's been present in school. These have been times when Lily's been absent, but you can see straight away it tells you that they're authorised. So just as an example, I think there was a netball sporting event that some people have gone to, so the absence have been authorised obviously by the school. If any come up there that are unauthorised and you're not sure as to why that is, then obviously that's when you might, as Mr. Howard was saying, to the school call and then we can try and get to the bottom of that for you. So the attendance breakdown is there. The other useful one, some of these we're building on at the minute because it's a new system for us. So not all of these will have information as yet. It's as we progress, we'll start to use these systems more and more. And obviously, Cooper is going to talk to us, expanding on some of the stuff we're doing on Synergy in a minute. But one of the things that we'll probably look to have a bit more stuff on will be the calendar. Just gives you an idea of any upcoming things. So you can see on here we've got the year 7 progress information. It's got the half term in there. The rest of it, the moment is quite blank. That will be built on as we go through the year and we start adding more things in for parents to see. So currently the staff calendar, we couldn't just copy that one across because that's got lots of things on that are not relevant and would be of interest to everybody. So that will just build up as you go through. Parent letters will appear in the parent letter section if they're added to Synergy. So if there's a letter that's sent home, that can be added to Synergy as well. So if the copy has been lost or misplaced, you'll hopefully be able to pick it up on there and have a look. And then timetable. So if you wanted to just have a quick check on what we've got the next day, you can see some of Dalton's timetable, and you can maybe then have a look at saying if we've got homework set, you can see when the next lesson is, of PE, technology that they might need extra equipment for, also to give you an idea of those kind of things as well. So it's a very whistle-stop tour really from me, because it was the main idea being just to show you the easiest way to get into Synergy, and it's obviously more interesting to all of you as individuals when you're looking at your own son or daughter on there in terms of how they're progressing. But I would encourage people to look at it, especially for the behaviour, because that is the way that you'll find out that they're doing really well in school and that they're getting the positives and the rewards, and you're able just to keep the track on if they are maybe forgetting some equipment or if they're picking up any other sanctions for anything as well. That's a great way for you to find out, and it's the main way now that we will communicate. It doesn't go in the diary like it used to. It's all going in Synergy so that it's all one. So if you do have any questions, you can find me an email, so it's just dfi@allhallows, especially if you're maybe struggling to log on or anything, just let me know and I'll speak to you and try and get that sorted as soon as possible. I think that's everything from me in terms of Synergy, so it's a school website, Synergy, and log yourself on from there.
Hello everyone, I've met some of you tonight already as a Year 7 form tutor, but I am also a teacher of English here at All Hallows, and I am the school's literacy coordinator. So I'm just here tonight to give you a brief overview about what literacy is, because it's a really key focus for us here at All Hallows, especially for sons and daughters who've just come through. So in terms of what literacy is, it's a really broad term. The biggest misconception with it is that it's something which is solely responsible or relies on the shoulders, particularly the English department, which it does to an extent, but every single member of staff here at All Hallows is responsible for ensuring that literacy is spread out across the curriculum so that your sons and daughters can access every lesson and be able to work towards that end goal, which of course is the GCSE examinations. It is essentially everything that leads to reading, writing and oracy. Anything where they are communicating with someone is what underpins literacy. So it's a huge national focus as well as something that we are really looking at here at All Hallows at the minute. I won't read all these statistics to you, but there are some quite shocking ones on there. In terms of why this is a focus for us and on a national picture, is that there's some quite alarming data about the level at which students come into high school with a narrow vocabulary. And the one that really sticks with me is that one at the bottom, that 43% in a very recent study of Year 7 students have a limited vocabulary, which affects their ability to access the curriculum or affects their ability to do well in school. And that was in 2018, so you can imagine with everything that's been going on with COVID that's a statistic which must be quite staggering now as a result. So in terms of what we're doing as a school to rectify that, it's quite broad, but it is fundamentally focused in vocabulary and reading strategies and what we can do as teachers and you as parents and guardians to help rectify any gaps that may have occurred as a result of COVID or that may be pre-existing anyway. In terms of what we are doing at All Hallows, I'm sure you're aware of some of them already. We do form reading, so one day a week your son or daughter will be reading independently informed to encourage a love and pleasure of reading. We also have compulsory Key Stage 3 literacy lessons at the moment, so as part of their English lessons, one day a week is spent with dedicated time to vocabulary and spelling and reading and developing strategies to be able to decode and read around Something that's going to be quite important for you as well is in the next few weeks after half term, your children will be sitting a new age reading test. So they will be assessed on their reading skills and they'll be given an age assigned to them, which will not only help us to recommend different texts for them and help challenge them, but it will give us, as classroom teachers, a better understanding of who our struggling readers may be, whether they're in top set or in PG. It will give us a really broad understanding of how we can tackle some of these issues so we can get them into intervention. Starting, I think it's this week, is it radio reading? So during form time, anyone who's identified as a struggling reader, we've got brilliant links with the SEN department who are going to be working really closely with some of our students. We've also got a plethora of extracurricular activities which are really fundamental to the school. So many things that your sons and daughters can get involved in. We very recently just ran a Roald Dahl party, which some of your children may have been invited to, which was brilliant, and it's so good. The more they can get involved, the better, so that we can really encourage a pleasure for reading. In terms of our expectations, this is in development, but something that's very relevant for you right now. A reading book is now part of compulsory equipment, so your son and daughter does need a reading book in their bag at all times. It's something that we do in English and in form, and it's just to encourage them that if they've got spare time, that it's something that they can be doing, and it's something which they should be doing for a form of enjoyment. We've got vocabulary books, which everyone will have been assigned, and we want really to see as important as an exercise book. It's something which is going to follow through them all the way to year 11, that they're going to be using it regularly, and by the end of it, they've got a book full of different vocabulary and how to access and decode it all. Something that we really would like to work on, and this is a document that I've got in a working process which will be accessible to you after half term, is how to support reading at home, which I appreciate is quite a task, especially as they go through the key stages. So it's really about how to help your sons and daughters find what they enjoy reading, how that you can support it at home with some really useful strategies, and how you can help them develop not only their enjoyment of reading but their comprehension strategies to be able to help them going forward across school. And that's it from me. It's quite a quick one. If you've got any concerns or any questions, please feel free to email me or Mrs. Wall or pass it on for me. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
I need to change my phone. Okay, so just to introduce myself, I'm assistant head teacher, Mrs. Cooper, and my role in school is to really work with pupils in terms of progress, in terms of how and where they come to us, in terms of their academic profile, and really how that progresses through school. I think one of the things that parents often say is data and school data these days is vast, there's quite a lot of it, and of course with the COVID impact, you will all know already that some of that data has been affected, and it's just probably from your point of view, having an idea of how we are tackling those issues and how we as a school are going to address some of those things going forward. Really just a bit of interpretation about how we report to you, how do you know how your child is progressing, what do you do if you've got concerns about your child's progress in school. So just to perhaps go back to the basics of how we teach our children in Year 7. Traditionally we've always gone for this kind of broad model, it is a banded model, in that we have two bands, with a P band and a G band, and it is split into what you might describe as a set 1, or a set 2, set 3, we do have this sort of nurture group as well. But we always know that when we put children in Year 7 into these groups, that they are very much a broad kind of, there is mixed ability within there. And I think that's something that you perhaps need reassurance of as well, is that us as teachers do not actually, when we first get a group of children in, particularly when we use, and it's at the top there, that we use SAT information to set them, or to put them into those groups, is that, we know that that's really only a math score and an English reading score, and that has its limitations, and we're fully aware that that is not the true, full academic profile of your child. But we do have to use something, and that is initially what we use. Clearly, with your children, that didn't happen, and didn't happen with the Year 8s either. So what we did in order to do that, last year we had no choice, we had to bring the pupils in mixed ability. We did do that, it brought with it some challenges, it brings with it some positives, there's always an argument about mixed ability versus setting of some description, but with this broad band that we have, we feel that it was the right thing to do this year to bring pupils in these broad bands. partly because it meant that we weren't spending, and last year we did have this issue where pupils are coming into school and they may have been stability in their forms, but we didn't also know very much about them. So there was a sense that we had to find out, and it wasn't like hitting the ground running. So we felt that these children had quite an impact in Year 5 and Year 6, and that really the curriculum needed to start from the beginning in Year 7, and most of you will probably realise that, you know, from day one they were set and they were given information, and their homework and their classwork has been hopefully set at the right level of challenge that they can mean that they can start to progress straight away. So that was really our sort of motivation behind trying to get them into the groups. We had to do something that was fairly consistent, so we went for a, you can access a kind of online SAT. We don't pretend that it's a SAT, it isn't a SAT, but it was done in a fair way in that all children sat the same tests, and they were done in the same way, in the same time, in the same conditions, so every child was tested before they came in. Now, we clearly know that there will have to be moves, and there will be people that move up and down in those little sets. So probably just to put that in a context to start off with, obviously when we do this broad setting, what we do is we look at their maths and English, and we then put them into one of these groups. These are parallel groups, so P1 and G1. If you put them all in rank order from number 1 to 178, number 1 would go here, number 2 would go here, number 3 would go here, etc. So these are parallel bands. In what we did was we looked at our maths, English, well, this is what they're taught, sorry, maths, English, science, sorry, geography, history, French, I shouldn't say German, I should say Spanish now, and ICT. And of course, what that means is that, you know, we are fully aware that somebody in P2 may be a stronger mathematician than somebody in P1. Somebody in G2 might be stronger in Spanish than somebody in G1. Somebody in G3 might be stronger in science than somebody in G2. So there is always that awareness that we're not looking at a highly profiled setting system. There is that broadband nature to it. What we do have is that technology, art, music, PE are always taught within a band. So, for example, on an art table, somebody in G1 could be sat next to somebody in PG, with somebody opposite in G2 and somebody next to them in G3. So that would be very much a non- or mixed ability grouping. So that is the profile of the way children are being taught. There is obviously more information, more data that we do get on your pupils, and this week they are sitting or have sat some of the CAT tests, and these are cognitive ability tests. They are done in most Lancashire schools, and they're probably kind of just a summary of raw academic ability, I suppose that's what they put it down to. And they're testing that, there's no sort of, you can't really revise for them, it's just going to give us an innate sense of their potential and ability. What I like to think of CATS as being, and the way that we use them in this school, is not as a kind of, you are this level of intelligence because you are 106 or whatever, but actually looking at the profile, because the mean CAT score is made up of 4 different batteries of tests. So, of course, the mean really does bring in what their verbal abilities or their quantitative abilities or spatial and non-verbal. And what is really useful from that is actually to identify maybe where the barriers are. So if somebody's a mean of 106, it could be made up of 2 very high scores, but maybe have particular weaknesses in areas as well. So it's more diagnostic in that it gives us a bit more of a pattern of the children and where those scores come. But there is no question that there is a link between the CAT score and potential ability, but clearly it's not a hard and fast rule. It's something that we look at as one of the data we have on children. I always think this is a long time ago now. This is when we moved into the number grades, but some of you will still probably be working in the old grades, the A star down to the U on this side, and I just think it's always worth pointing out to parents that these 4 grades here, the A star, the A, the B and the C, became the 6 grades over here. So it was stretching out anybody who was sort of a C and above into those 6 grades. And you can see down here where we have the D, E, F, G, it became only 3 grades. And remembering, I suppose, as parents, that magic 4 was probably seen in some ways towards the idea of the C at GCSE. And obviously employers, college courses do still value and look at that 4 as something that's really important. So looking ahead towards your progression through school, clearly have your eye on those sorts of things for future transition. There is something called a good pass now, which they class as a 5, and some employers will ask for a good pass in English, maths in particular, reminding you that if you don't get a 4 in English or maths Maths at GCSE, then you are forced to resit that at college. That would then be non-negotiable. You have to go back into a programme of resitting the English and Maths at GCSE. So, you know, having your eye on those endpoints I think is important, but it's not the most important thing in Year 7. We want them to settle, we want them to start to progress, and then of course this journey hopefully will happen as they go through. Just an idea about target setting. What we're doing this year is slightly different in Year 7, is that they've come into the school and we do have an idea. We've got CAT scores that are going to be there. We're going to have our internal SAT ones that we sat in the primary schools on entry. So we do have some data, but it's important that we get to know the children. It's important that we start to recognise their strengths and weaknesses in the individual subjects. And then in January, we're going to then begin to set some targets for them. And those targets, and we do ask you to appreciate that it's very difficult, and it's, you know, some people would say that it's a strange thing to think, well, what are you predicting for 5 years' time? We're not predicting anything. What we're doing is looking at the idea of potential. We're trying to build in our school the idea that good progress, and we need to be monitoring that and checking that as we go through Year 7 into Year 8 into Year 9. It's not something that people will stick with in Year 7. In fact, you know, it's a light touch in terms of their targets, but we do want to share them with you, and therefore you do as parents get access to those targets, and your children will therefore know what they are as well. But it's not something that we'll use in language in a classroom. You know, you are a 6, you are a 7. It's more that there will be a sense of you're on track, and you'll hear more about that in a minute. So, we obviously, Ofsted use our entry scale scores in Year 6. We don't have them officially, but we do have some unofficial ones which we will use. We'll obviously look at some CATs as well in there, and we'll also look, and you'll see on here, there are, you know, we need to get to know the pupil. Once we know the pupil, we look at the starting points there. There are these flight paths. Now, flight paths are never straight lines. There is a hope that the flight path goes up, you know, that they make progress through their 5 years. But all we're doing initially really is just making that idea that there is a flight path progression that we expect for children. And of course, there will be children who make it to that top level 9, and there will be children who make it to lower grades, and it might be that that's the right level of progress for them. And clearly, it goes through the years as we go through. So targets will be set, and they will be on the first report that you will get in January, probably beginning of February. However, just to make you or just be aware that not all children will do straight lines. Some go up and down, like wavy. Some make a lot of progress and then settle down a bit and then make more progress. It's not always a straight line. And there are children, of course, that come in perhaps with a lower Maths English score and actually do progress well within subjects. And we have to allow a system that lets that happen. So targets are not set in Year 7 in stone, and they will be there all the way through. Targets will go up, targets will go down. They won't be moved, you know, all the time. It will be a sort of sensible decision making around each year review. And of course we know that some children are good at maths, and some children are good at art, and some children are good at music. And what really we need to do is to start to work out where those strengths are, and those targets will rise or fall according to different subjects. So this person might be particularly, you know, struggling in maths and English, but actually an amazing artist. So of course I would expect quite nothing in art that may, you know, be quite a rocket in effect. But there are other people, and there are other children who may come in on high maths and English scores, who find that secondary school is a different beast to primary school. You know, children do reach their peak at certain points at different levels, and they may have a trajectory that's a little bit flatter. But what we're looking for is progress and effort, and being able to say that this is what we expect of the child's potential they've got, and we're supporting them to achieve the best they can, whatever that is, and making sure those targets respond to the needs of the child. So really, that's really our policy around target setting. If you have any issues with target setting, then it's something you can talk to the teacher about, talk to me about, and we can look at that on an individual basis as well. We will report to you 4 times during the year. We won't, we'll do 3, sorry, because there won't be a data collection 1 for Year 7. That will only be for Year 8, 9, 10 and 11. You will start to join the system at this point here, which is in January, again in April and again in June. And what we do is we have ways to feed back to you. It will be an interim report, a full written report and a parents' evening. So you'll get some impact as to how they're doing, what targets they've been set, how they're progressing, what skills they're developing, where are the weaknesses, where are the gaps, those sorts of things will come through. Your interim report will look something like that. you at the moment. You normally would, if you've got older brothers and sisters, this would be a paper copy coming in an envelope, delivered home by your child. But it's no longer going to be that. We're going digital. It's going to be attached as a PDF to Synergy, which means that you would need to log into Synergy to get this report. Now, we will send a parent mail or a Synergy mail through to you to alert you to this, so that you will know that there is assessment data or fresh assessment data available for you to view. And at that point, if you click onto the PDF, it will open up, and if you want to print that off at home, then that's your record at that moment in time when we do this report. And following on from what Mr. Finch said, you know, there is academic information on here, but there's also pastoral information on here, and they are cumulative and summative. So basically, it will have here all your attendance and lates are on here. This is what he was talking about before with regards to the rewards. So at this point, this is how many rewards there are, this is how many sanctions. Now, if you see things that alert you and you know, you're a bit concerned about that, you can go and get that high level of detail on Synergy. That doesn't make sense. I made this up today. The total number of sanctions is 17. You'd expect these next four columns to add up to the 17. So what you might be saying is, how come all these sanctions have come along? What are they not doing? And you might find something that actually all 17 are to do with poor homework, or it might be that they're not bringing their organisation, or the uniform, or their equipment isn't right, or it could be a combination of both. So it's the idea of being able to work out what's causing the problem. This is going to be the snapshot, but then it's dig a bit deeper into Synergy. Obviously, contact Head of Year if you've got any concerns on that. On this side, it's really straightforward in the sense that we will give you our initial, probably first go really at where we think your child potentially could be aiming towards on a flight line. And we don't necessarily broadcast this too much to children. It's really something that, you know, could be discussed in a lesson, but ultimately we would probably say things like in our room, well, I think, you know, this class are hoping to get lots of 6s or 7s or 5s. You know, we talk broadly around targets because we don't know exactly what we're going to get in year 7. But what's really important is probably this little bit at the end here, is the idea that are they doing what we would expect them to do at that age? So are your children able to reduce the work that we would expect to make their potential to be able to go on to get? And of course this one is vitally important, is the effort that they're putting in to achieve that. If you're getting a set of reds in here, then obviously your concern is high grade, they're not putting that effort in. And of course if they're struggling here and they're getting a few reds in here, this one is a good one to refer to, because if they're getting the reds and not going to be potentially on target, then of course this question is, are they actually putting the effort in to do that? And then we can start to look at targets as well. So the report has got quite a bit of information. Any concerns? If you just get 1 or 2 concerns in there, I would just keep that as a light touch to begin with, because there's no way that children all do that beautiful flight path line. But if you get maths as an issue, and then maths is an issue with the next one, then you start to think, is there an issue with maths? Is there something we need to support a bit more? Is the homework being done, etc.? Are we making good progress? And if not, why not? But if it's just once, and then maybe the next report has gone back to green, it might just be that they're struggling with a particular topic, etc. If they are blue, then obviously they're suggesting that progress is great in that subject, and we would review that and maybe potentially bring targets up as well. So they are not static targets, they're constantly being reviewed to see if we need to move them. Obviously these sets that we're talking about at the moment, the P1, the G1, there will be moves, and because there has been moves already actually, hasn't there? They will take place if, and this is the criteria really, the pupil in the set below is consistently outperforming the pupil in the higher group, and the word there is consistently. Because it's not just on a one-off test, it's got to be a consistent idea that they're producing work that is higher than somebody in the group above. What we don't want is to constantly have a yo-yo effect where you're up and you're down and you never really know where you are. It's a settled class, but where there is consistency in difference of performance, we will move people. They will happen at any time of year, but clearly there are 4 data collections which give us more evidence to back that up. And as we say, it's always based on assessment data. But that doesn't mean it's so hard and fast. Children need to be looking, more than a set of numbers and statistics. There is a pastoral situation going on there. Children have worries and concerns and patches of time when progress may be affected, and that clearly has to be taken into account as well. The youth will be given warning letters, so we'll always letter home before we move somebody. So you'll never get a phone call one day and say, we're moving your child down a set. You would always get a letter that says your child has fallen into the lower part of a group, and we will perhaps be moving forward and looking at considering them for a move, and we'll give them a period of time to perhaps implement improvements also, because it might be that it's not their ability, it's just their application, and their, once they realise that potentially I'm not doing as well as I could be doing, they might actually make that improvement for themselves. So we don't send that to the child, that actually goes directly by post to the parents or email. It will never go via the child, so they don't have to know about that letter if you choose them, because it can worry children if they feel they're in the bottom of the room, particularly if they're trying hard. They don't want the worry and the extra pressure of like, I'm going to move down if I don't do well enough. So it might be your parental choice as to whether to share that with them or not. But of course it's for you to know and for you to help them, monitor them, etc. So that's important. We do use Catskills a little bit to assist us with moves, but ultimately they are never the driving factor. They're just there to assist and to look at potentials and barriers that there might be. Mentioned Parents' Evening, yours is in January, obviously this little introduction today, but then really January is the time that you'll get to speak to the individual class teachers. It's probably going to be on the iCloud, which I think probably parents are familiar with, which is the online version of it. It's one of those things from COVID that we quite like. It makes it run more smoothly, it gives you allocated time. Obviously if that's not enough time, then there can be a through school or through the individual teacher. And that will obviously discuss lots of issues there. A more detailed report, we're actually moving away from the traditional, paper copy, English, French, geography, whatever it is, subjects. We're moving to a different style of reporting this year. But we're going to allow, it's got to have that text element so that we can explain or put in a comment from a class teacher about how they're progressing in that subject. So there will be interims, there will be Parents' Evening, and there will be a more detailed report with subject comments in there as well. In terms of intervention, this is probably why it's still important to keep talking about the idea of a target, because that target is with them, it will move and it will be flexible, but we need to be able to see when children are not always making the progress that we want them to make. So it's that way of being able to target and look at children who are perhaps struggling a little bit and being able to see what is it they're struggling with, and particularly with COVID, there will be gaps, and those gaps need to be looked at. So we normally say that these are the 4 areas that intervention strategies are around it. They're often around making sure children are in a good place to learn. But actually, I think this year we've added extra specific targets in there. There was targeted interventions in there, particularly around the literacy and the numeracy. And it's not necessarily that they're going to be particularly low literacy or numeracy, but people who are just struggling with gaps in their literacy and numeracy knowledge. So that will be plugged in. We have got the money from the government, and we are spending on what's called catch-up or recovery premium. And this is the 1-to-1 or 1-to-3 online after-school sessions, which will be catch-up, focusing on catch-up. We're going to link with the SEND department, particularly looking at phonics and what we said with the literacy before and decoding. There will be, and we're looking to try and introduce some small group interventions that are a little bit around fun activities as well, because we recognise that they've been stuck at home and they haven't had some of the trips and some of the experiences of year 6 and year 5 that they might have had. So we're going to try and do some booster activities around maybe visits or maybe places that they can go and things they can do in school that are fun that they can experience as well. So there's going to be some intervention in that. And I suppose what we're saying really is enriching our curriculum and making it so they can have more learning in a different way that they perhaps have not had where they've had the online learning, etc. Just a little word about setting in year 9. Some of you may think, right, so if my child goes into G2 and they're being taught French and they're being taught IT and they're being taught maths and English, and they stay in G2 in year 8, can they move, say they're better at maths or they're not as good at science, or maybe it's their English that's strong? How do you deal with that as you go further up the school? Well, by the time we get to year 9, and we are looking at maybe introducing this earlier, potentially the setting will change. So for example here, this is the P band. It could well be by year 9 that your child is in the top group for English, but could be in the second set for maths, the top set for science, and possibly the second, I should say, say the second group for the others, that's the geography, history, etc., and Spanish. So there are actually 4 strands of setting by year 9. So it's not that they're stuck in a group and they'll be all the way through school. They will be in this broader band in year 7, possibly into year 8. We are looking to maybe change that. And then obviously by year 9, there will be much more about strength setting. So whether stronger in English than move up, whether weaker in maths, they may move down. So there will be some changes to setting there. Always technology, art, performing arts at Key Stage 3 will be mixed ability, and PE is set, but separately. It's usually a higher level group than maths for the boys and girls. Just to summarise, to finish quickly from me, is that this is our progress record for the school over 5 years. We know that if you score 0, that means that you've done what's expected of your children. So if you manage to get 0, then that means that the government has set a standard for your children. And of course, don't forget, our children come in, average is well above national average. So our actual prior attainment average is 5, and that's on the old level system, which means that that is well above national average. This is last year groups. They were a bright cohort last year's year 11. That meant the government set us a target of 51.77, and we did exactly what we should do in terms of progress. And those pupils left at 57.88, reflecting a progress of 0.62. Anything positive means you've added more than expected value to the students. And of course, the last 2 years we've had teacher assessed grades, and it's very difficult as teachers to work out who might struggle in an exam. So there would be an expectation of a slight inflation. There has been slight inflation. But if you notice our scores down here, they've always been positive. These are when the exams were 16, 17, 18, 19, all exams, and 20 and 21 are good performance, but certainly reflective in some of our previous performance as well. So our scores do show that the progress is there, that our children on average are making good progress, and we hope that that system allows it to happen. If you've got any questions about progress, you can talk to the teachers. Any questions generally about progress, it's Mrs. Hall and myself, and we will try and help you with regards to that. So I think that's me done.
It's something that 5 weeks into the new term I've done loads of already. Horrific language, racism, stuff that the kids are not necessarily writing themselves but stumbling across and sharing and not understanding. So it's becoming bigger each year. It's becoming bigger each year, this. I'm sure you've spoken to them loads at home about it. I'm sure primary school did, and it's something that we continue to do throughout the next 5 years. So, out of 31 year 7 pupils that I questioned, 28 of them had a smartphone, 21 of them had TikTok, despite the age limit being 13, and I think probably only about 20 of my year 7s are even 12 yet. So, 19 of them had Snapchat, again, age limit is under 13. 13 had Instagram, again, the age limit was 13. 13 of them were allowed to take their phones to bed with them every night, and then they proceeded to tell me that the times they stay up until on those phones range from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Which is just, I mean, we see it more and more and more in the classroom now. They cannot keep their eyes open. You know, some kids, they're on the games, or they're just so tired, particularly the first lesson. They can't, they're not with it, and they're the ones who are up until 2 o'clock in the morning on the phone comes with them.
They lose track of time.
They do.
That's part of the problem.
And I know that myself, and I'm sure some of you do as well. You can be looking at your phone, oh my gosh, how's half an hour's gone past now? And they're doing the same look for 4 hours into the early hours of the morning. So some of them actually need to take their phones back with them, even though they knew they weren't supposed to. And these were some of the excuses. They said they needed to charge it. They said they needed it for an alarm. They go back down and nick it from downstairs or they stole it off the kitchen at service, and they play the guilt tripping card. Oh, everyone else is allowed their phone. So that's how they get phones. Only 13 people said their parents check their phones regularly. Now for me this is like a massive example because of the things I've dealt with that have been big social media things so far this year, the parents have been absolutely horrified at things they've either written themselves or shared or have come across or have had sent to them, and they've said, oh my gosh, I need to check the phone, I'll check the phone. You absolutely must be checking the phone because it might not be anything they're doing, it might be something somebody's sending to them, and there's more and more of that all the time, and it might not be something they want to receive, but they're opening it and they're seeing it, and once they've seen it, they can't unsee it. So it's really important that you're checking the phones regularly, daily. What, you know, if you take their phone at bedtime, which hopefully you do, that's a great time to check. 10 of them said they actually had a passcode on the phone that the parents didn't actually know, which would just be the biggest no-no for me. You pay for that phone, so you bought it, paid for the contract, you absolutely should know what the code is to be able to get into it. And if they don't want you to know, there's very possibly a reason why they don't want you to know what the code is to get into the phone. As the last 6 years of being MBA7 have gone on, there's been more and more apps that I just have never heard of that didn't used to be the case. But now, these things here, Discord, Omegle, Roblox and Twitch, I have absolutely no idea, but these are the kids' descriptions of what they are. So it can't be set private, you can talk to anyone at all. It's like FaceTime, but you can talk to random people. It's where you play games, but then you can chat to anyone too. You can't set it to private. And Twitch is streaming that where you can talk to strangers. So these are the things that I feel like I wouldn't even know what they look like. Well, this is what they look like on the bottom. They don't look particularly out of place on a phone. I don't think you'd see that and think, oh my gosh, what's that? You probably wouldn't even, it wouldn't stand out to you to look at. So it's really important that you're aware of the apps they have on the phone and what they actually do. 18 said they've had a friend or follow request from someone that they didn't know. Now some of them respond to those by accepting them. If they call, it's only just somebody who wants to follow me, but they then can often proceed to send them messages or things they don't want to receive. 9 of them said that they've seen something online by accident that scared them, and that's just what I was saying before about it's not necessarily that they want to see it, but once they've seen it, they can't unsee it. I don't think it was last year, perhaps the year before, and probably I don't have TikTok, but if anyone has TikTok, there was a video going around that just had something absolutely horrific about suicide in it, and it was taken down shortly after it went on, but there was enough time for a lot of people, and some of our pupils, to have seen that video. And it was a video that I think is something that's staying with you for quite a long time. So it's really important that they're not accessing anything like that. YouTube's getting bigger and bigger. Again, a vlog, I don't know very much about vlogs at all, but I believe from what people tell me, it's seen by anyone. And the number of views that they get is deemed to be a level of popularity. So they're posting videos of themselves, mostly innocent, I'm sure, but it's just who's watching those, and what all those videos are. So, what can you do to help them stay safe online? Get them to talk to you. So I learned so much from talking to them to do this, loads. They told me so much stuff that I didn't know. So get them to talk to you about apps. If there's apps on their phone that you don't recognise, ask them to tell you what they do and what they do on them. Talk to them about their online use, set boundaries, clear boundaries, so don't let them have the phones until they've done everything, or have a set amount of time per night. I know that is getting harder to implement a rule like that, but if you can have set times that they go on the phone, maybe times when you're around, you're kind of hovering about. Don't let them take the phones to bed, it's the worst. Or at least switch off your Wi-Fi at bedtime so they have a bit of trouble using the phone when they go to bed. Talk to them about cyberbullying. We do it in school. I think it's something we do with Year 7 in personal development. But just that whatever they say is then it's actual hard evidence they're written. They've sent something. And they're often, when I call them, they say, oh my gosh, you've sent this message to somebody, they're horrified. They're absolutely horrified that child has kind of saved it and shown it to an adult. But that's what happens when you write something silly and you send it. So just talk to them about that. Check the security settings. Sometimes they're quite complicated ways to set them private, or you can have them partially private or friends of friends, and just look into that with them and regularly check that they've left out those as you would want. Passwords we talked about. Think mum, that's what we say to them. If they wouldn't want you guys reading it, they wouldn't want me reading it, don't send it, just don't send it. And stranger danger, of course, about accepting strangers on any of those platforms and talking about any of those things. So, when I first did this 6 years ago, very few people had heard of these, but I think most parents have them now. And you can download apps, you can pay for some. I don't know quite what the difference is between the paid ones or the free ones, but apps where you have total control over their phone. So you can say to them, I'm locking your phone now for 2 hours, do your homework, have tea, do the dishes, and then I'll lock your phone. You can lock various apps. I mean, they all do a variety of different things, but it's definitely worth looking into. There's absolutely loads of them, so do some research on them and see if there is one that will suit you. And then the last one is just say that on our website we do have a bit on internet safety. So if you find anything on their phone that worries you, have a look on our website because there's a few websites on there you can have a look at, or feel free to ring me if it's anything you want to discuss or any messages that you're not happy about them receiving. I mean, there's a line, isn't there? If it's happening outside of school, obviously that is for you to deal with, but if you think there is an issue in school, please contact me. And that is the last thing I'm going to say on that. I just want to really briefly talk about teams. If your child has to isolate, because Year 7 obviously so new to school. Now, Mr Finch actually went round all the Year 7s a couple of weeks ago because I was worried that they didn't maybe know how to log on to Teams and you know, if they had to isolate, how to access their work. Now they all assured me they did know, they knew how to get on Teams, they knew how to find the work. But one of the teachers of Year 7 today is going to say that her class told her they didn't know. So that is something that is going to be looked at in their computer science lesson with Mr Carr, who some of you will spoken to tonight. He is one of our Year 7 form tutors. It was something we had to do quite quickly last year or the year before, wasn't it? Get all Year 7 set up on Teams so they knew what they were doing. And that's our aim, so that if they have to isolate for however long, if they get COVID, they should be able to get all of their work on Teams. Now, some, I know myself, so a couple of my Year 11s were reading a play at the moment, originally and they said, well, we can't hear what people are saying through the camera. So I've set work, and I don't mind doing that, that's fine. And it might be that if it works better for you, if you've contacted the teachers and they're emailing work, but Teams is their first protocol, and it should say on Teams what has been said and where they can go to find that work. And again, if there's any queries about that, just email me or ring me. The office are often great at sorting those out.
Just to say on that, obviously if they've got COVID and they're ill, we don't expect them to do the work, but it's worth perhaps ringing and telling us that they've got COVID, they're at school, or maybe ringing back when they are still isolated but capable of doing work. So it's just getting you as parents just letting us know at what point the work needs to come home, because obviously 10 days is quite a long time.
Yeah, they won't be expected to do it if they're feeling unwell. So yeah. And that is everything from me. So thanks so much for coming. And me and Mrs. Cooper will sit around now if you want to ask us anything. If you want to get off, that's fine. And you